Does it feel like a long summer for you? What do you get up to?
Um, well, I just had my third grandchild about a month ago with my second son, Tommy, who has become, I don't want to say relatively famous, but back on November 10th, 1990, I was a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And then while I was actually in the delivery room with my wife, about 3 hours before puck drop at Maple Leaf Gardens, we were playing the Blackhawks that night, hockey night in Canada at 8 o'clock. I was getting ready to welcome our second son into the world, and I got a note from the nurse that the Maple Leafs were on the phone and they wanted to talk to me. And they actually pulled me out of the delivery room and told me they just traded me to the Winnipeg Jets. So um, he just had a baby girl, so I now have three grandchildren, and so the summer has been full of adding another Olczyk into this world, and just enjoying the time off. And before I know it, we'll be doing games every other day for the next 8 months. So good time of year, though.
Well, that's awesome, Eddie. Congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
And
Thank you.
that's a wild story. It reminds me of when I was having my first child. It was 2013. I'm in the delivery room in my hometown, and I just got traded to the Flyers, and things were great. It was summer for me. We weren't in the playoffs, but the Leafs were playing the Bruins, and they had that epic meltdown the night that I was delivering my firstborn kid. So I'll never forget that. I remember popping out to the visiting area all the time and going, what,
Yeah, yeah,
and just
exactly.
couldn't believe my
Yeah,
eyes. So
something I know on November 10th, 1990, there's always a story or two to be told. And I don't know, somehow when I was actually in the delivery room, and just, Cliff Notes version, the doctor was at the foot of the bed. And on a scale of 1 to 10, my wife was probably a legit 4 or 5. And the nurse comes in and she hands me, a little piece of paper and just goes, and it says on there, the Maple Leafs are on the phone. And I'm like, just tell them I'll be at the game. She's going to have the baby, and I'll be there. I mean, I'm at Scarborough Centenary. I'll be there in 20 minutes, and I'll play the game. And she comes back and she's like, no, they really want to talk to you. And my wife's on her back, ready to go. And I'm like, should I stay or should I go? And like, of course, like an idiot, I'm like, well, I'll go take the call. And then sure enough, they told me that, they traded me. And I'm like, I can't believe it, and I walked back in the delivery room about 5 minutes later. And after calling my dad, my agent, Mark Osborne, who I got traded with, Gary Lehman, who was my line mate, I come back into the room and nothing's changed. The doctor's at the foot of the bed, mask on, gloves on. My wife's on her back, and she's like, where have you been? And I'm like, I didn't want to tell her, right?
yeah.
And I'm like, my aunt's sick. I didn't know what to say. And she looks at me, looks at the ceiling while on her back, and she goes, where are we going? I'm like,
smart girl.
My gosh. And I'm like, guess. And she just looks at me, looks at the ceiling, and says, Winnipeg. And I'm like, psychic and pregnant. I mean, you talk about a combination. And next thing you know, I look at the foot of the bed, and the doctor's got this disgust on his face. He pulls his mask off. He pulls the gloves off. And he goes, this baby ain't coming for another 3 hours.
So, something tells me she probably felt a bit better on September 3rd, 1987. Is that right?
Yeah, I would probably say that's probably fair to say. Yeah. But I will say, I mean, we were obviously crushed. Crushed to leave Toronto, because I kind of felt like I arrived in my NHL career playing for the Leafs for the 3.5 years. But, we ended up loving Winnipeg. I ended up going there 2 different times. I spent, I think, almost parts of 6 seasons in the Peg. And it's something that, I really enjoyed. So that, that stretch of being in Toronto and getting traded while in the delivery room and then going to Winnipeg was, I think it was I would say a wake-up call, but it is a business. It's always be a business. And, look at Jay, you can speak to this. Like, when it affects you, the player, or the coach or the manager or whatever, you're okay with it. But when it kind of starts affecting the people that you love and your family and your kids and stuff, like that's where you kind of, I think most guys that I've talked to over their lifetime, it leaves a little bit of a bad taste in your mouth. But look, they had to do what they did. But can you imagine today if a player got called out of a delivery room and was told that he was traded. I mean, there would be the way the world is now. There would be a lot of problems with the way the handling of that specific, a lack of respect for the family and especially the woman and that's involved in the unborn child. So times have changed, but like I said, I loved it in Toronto and ended up loving it just as much in the Peg.
That is a wild story, and yeah, there'd be some hurt feelings this day and age.
Yeah. The Players Association would be involved for sure. That.
I would think so, but it's something to be said too, because the women in the hockey players' lives, especially when they become mothers, they got to bear so much load as far as organizing and packing and taking care of so many different details and being able to go with the flow. And like no bigger example than your story. She's on her back giving birth and has to learn. And I'm sure her mind was going through all the shit she's got to pack up with this baby, right? So pretty interesting stuff. As good as they do have it when they're NHL wives, there's a lot they got to go through as well. But moving on to the Maple Leafs a little bit, Ed, what are your expectations this year for the Toronto Maple Leafs?
I mean, I really like, what's happened on the back end, Jay. Bertuzzi, obviously is a tough one. It's just, a little bit of a different look, a little different dimension up front from the forwards point of view. But some other guys are going to get an opportunity. You got to step up, and that's what it is. But I mean, I like the mindset of what they've done there on the back end, getting some experience, getting a guy like obviously with Tanev and OEL there to, just bring in that, obviously like Ekman Larson winning last year, but I think Tanev's a winner. He's the type of guy that you need to have on your team. I think you can look, just if you want to go recent years, you can go the last 10 Stanley Cups and sit there and go, well, you know what? Everybody's got a guy like Chris Tanev. I'm not saying the same skill level or, skating wise. I'm just saying, like, you need to have a different piece of the puzzle if you're going to have success and win. So I really like what they've done. I mean, I'm really bullish on the Leafs, like for the first time in a long time. And I know the Mitch Marner situation is going to, it's going to be there, and we understand that. Just from a hockey guy's point of view, and again, this probably maybe for a different day and a different conversation, but when you have a player like Mitch Marner, and it seems to happen more often than not, is when you have a guy really, I think that is in the heart of his prime and is only 26, just turned 27, I believe, in recent months in April or May. If you're the manager or ownership and you got a guy like Mitch Marner, who we've seen over the years really grow, and let's just take the player. When they get to a spot where I think he's right in the heart of his prime, and in my opinion, to be in a situation where I don't believe that you can give players now, and again, it's got to be a philosophy of the organization. I don't think you can give the players everything unless he's an absolute Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid, we can go on with those guys. I don't think you can give them the full Monty. I don't think you can give them the shorter term deal where they are free agents, unrestricted free agents at 26 or 27 years of age. I mean, the perfect example was Matthews latter, right? Like, he was an unrestricted free agent going into, and he decided to stay in Toronto, which is awesome. What I'm saying is that when the team puts themselves in a spot and a player is in really, and you think and project that he's going to be in the heart of his prime, I don't think that you can do this for every single player and just give them the absolute no trade, no movement, because if you get in where you don't feel and you don't want to be in a spot where the player might want to leave, is that you can't let a player like that leave for nothing. It puts you in an unbelievable spot. And take it on top is that just think about all of the, regardless if the player or the team wants it, and we know they don't, is just think about all the extra added questions and pressure over the course of the year is what's going to happen, what's going to happen, what's going to happen. like I understand of getting a player into age 26, 27 and pay him a lot of money, but I don't think that you can also put in a spot where you have, as a team, you don't have the ability to be able to do what you want to do. You know, like players, if you pay them enough or whatever, for the most part, I think guys are they're going to sign the deal because, Jay, we know this. It is always ends up being about the money. And if a player isn't going to sign because you're not going to give them a full no trade or full no movement, well, then you got to play the game. Where's he going to go? Okay, if you want to go over to Russia or you want to go to Switzerland and play, then there's no better league in the world. So I just think I see it more and more is where teams are just they're giving really good players everything, where I would draw a line as an organization and go, okay, look, we're going to pay you and we're going to let you get to free agency possibly at 27, but we're not going to let you drive the bus. We're going to drive the bus and we're not going to give you everything. So, and I know I kind of went a little bit off there, but getting back on the subject, I like what the Leafs have done. And, I don't know their caps, I don't know exactly the availability for cap and whatever. I mean, yeah, do they have holes? Yeah, but I like them better than I did last year. And, we'll see how it all plays out.
So naturally, a lot of that goes to the previous administration and some of the contract negotiations before, Brad Treliving comes in. But I think, the intriguing part for many of us, if it's one thing, they're going to come back with Mitch Marner. How's he going to coexist? How is he going to mesh with Craig Berube? So to that point, what do you think of the Berube hire here?
Yeah, I loved it. I really think that the man known as Chief, we all know who the original Chief is with the Leafs, obviously George Armstrong back in the days. So I got a quick story. If I could tell you George Armstrong's story, just remind me before you guys cut me off. Give me about 2 minutes. But look, he's a winner. There's no middle ground. There's no middle ground with Craig Berube, and I think it was a terrific hire. And look at. There were some teams out there and that chance, and they didn't step up to the table because he was one of the more well sought after coaches, and he's going to put his fingerprints all over this team, and it's going to be, the players are going to know where they stand. And look at, you might get called out, you might get called out on the bench, you might get called out in the locker room. But he's honest as the day is long. And I never had a chance to play with him. I wish I would have played with him because all he did was chase me around the rink my whole NHL career, tell me he was going to kill me. But that's what the day, that's what the days were back in the day. And I became friendly with him when he was coaching in Chicago with the American Hockey League with the Chicago Wolves. So I got a chance to know him there. And then we were teammates last year at TNT down here in the States doing television. So, I think it's going to be different. I think Leaf fans are going to be on the edge of their seats. And, I think the media is going to be on their toes because if somebody asks a question that Chief kind of feels is maybe out of line or
stupid,
maybe not appropriate, he's going to let somebody know, which I think is okay because it's going to bring some color to the media conferences there in Toronto.
So for Leafs fans, Ed, obviously they've come up short of what their goals have been without question. Some people thought changing up the core four would have been the answer. That didn't happen. Some thought, Mitch Marner, all the things we just talked about didn't happen. So we're going ahead with similar core group of forwards. In your experience and over 1,000 games in the NHL, how much does a coach have, not control, but influence on how a team plays? Can they get this same group to play drastically different, especially in the playoffs? Can Craig Berube accomplish that?
Yeah, I think he can. It does come up to the individuals. I mean, at the end of the day, schemes and all that kind of stuff, you got to go out there and be able to execute. But look at, the team will be judged without question come playoff time. And, like I said, I think they've made the right changes and the right moves to be able to help them, facilitate. And look, does it mean they're going to win 2 or 3 rounds? No, it doesn't. But I think that especially on the back end, I think they're much more well suited for, where they want to get to. And look, there's some tweaking that probably needs to go on, and but you never know what might end up happening, and you just never know when a situation's going to arise, and you got to go ahead and jump in, because look at this window here is open, but the longer you go, the window continues to close at that.
Yeah, time continues to move. And I wanted to ask you as well about our bona fide sniper, Austin Matthews. What comes to mind when you hear that name? And obviously the next couple of years are going to be kind of cool to watch and document in the NHL with Alex Ovechkin chasing Wayne Gretzky. But we say this on a daily basis. We watch Austin Matthews. The sky seems to be the limit for this kid when it comes to goal scoring, doesn't it?
Oh, it is. Yeah, Nick. It's he's as pure as a goal scorer that you want. I mean, he has just he can score really kind of any situation. He can put himself in a spot. I don't think he gets enough credit for be able, for how he does get to those holes or gets to those areas, and then he's able to get the puck and be able to score a lot of different ways. I mean, he's just got unbelievably smooth hands, and having been a center and, having my best year in Toronto, my first year in Toronto, where I went back to my natural position of playing center after playing the wing in Chicago my first 3 years. I scored 42 goals my first year. And so knowing the position, understanding that, it's not easy to score goals in a National Hockey League, but you're right. I think that, yeah, the sky is the limit. And, I was touting him for MVP last year when he was on pace for one time. I think for like maybe a couple of days he was on pace for like 72 or 73, which was, I mean, just absolutely incredible. And I know, look at, somebody said to me, "Oh, what's the difference between 69 and 72 and 73?" I know you're right. I mean, to score 9 goals for any guy in 1 year is just absolutely incredible. So, look, I'm a big fan. I always have been, and just very impressed with the way that he's able to, find those holes and do a thing that is as tough as anything in all of professional sports, is to put that disc into the back of the net with goaltenders there trying to deny. So, but I'm a huge fan of him, and would I expect him to would I expect him to score 70 goals in a season or two before it's all said and done, Nick? Hell yes. Yeah, because I think he has that ability to do it. And not many guys you could sit here and say right now and go, like, look, I believe like Wayne Gretzky, if he wanted to, Gretz probably could have scored 120 goals in a season if he wanted to. Like, I believe that. I believe Mario Lemieux could have had a 75 or an 80 goal season. I don't say if he wanted to, but I think certainly he did, because when you look at the numbers and you look at, the injuries that obviously Mario played with Mario and coach him for a tad when I was in Pittsburgh, but this is an unbelievable skill, and it's just not easy. And I think a goal scorer today could do it back in my day, so to speak. And I think the guys of my day, the greatest goal scorers at that time, guys would come in, and I quite frankly, look at, you want to take a guy like Bossy or Yari Curry or Wayne Gretzky or Mario Lemieux. Those guys would all be on top of the goal scoring list. That's just my gut feeling. I don't care what era that those guys are. And then you look at the equipment and change and the rules and everything. So, yeah, I mean, Austin Matthews to me is, he's as good as it gets right now in the National Hockey League. And to me, I would be shocked if he isn't a 70-plus goal scorer a couple of times over his future Hall of Fame career.
And speaking of Leafs legends, you mentioned, I don't know if everyone knows George Armstrong, a pretty famous Maple Leafs captain, played through the late 50s into the early 70s, I believe. I think he's got 4 cups with them. Absolute legend. His picture's everywhere throughout the dressing room. You've got a George Armstrong story. We've definitely got time for it.
Yeah. He took over as coach, and Chief hadn't coached in any hockey since I think it was like 17, 18 years. I think he actually coached the Marlies at one point, the junior team.
Yeah.
And he took over the NAL team, and he came in the morning and said, pretty much, he was a scout at the time with the Leafs, and George Armstrong came into the locker room and said, guys, look, like, I really don't want to be here and coach, but if I want to get paid, I got to coach, So, so we have a little snicker at that, and he says, hey guys, look, tonight during the game, like, if you're not sure who's up, just yell, hey Chief, who's up? So we're a couple of shifts into the game or whatever, and I thought my line was up, and I turn around to George Armstrong, and I yell, and I'm one of the first guys to yell, hey Chief, who's up? And he looks at me and he goes, Pulford, Ellis, Keon. And I went, Pulford, Ellis, Keon? I mean, you played with all those guys. And I look back, and he gives me a wink. He goes, Olczyk, Osborne, Lehman. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So, one of those Leaf legends standing behind the bench and having a little fun, standing behind the bench, talking about some great Maple Leafs that he played with, and kind of finished up the season. And then Chief retired from coaching, and then we all moved on. So that's my George Armstrong story, and I'm sticking to it.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.